Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to speak this afternoon. First, the International Association of Peace Messenger Cities consists of cities that were designated by the General Assembly of the United Nations in 1985, and we've been meeting subsequently ever since. When the bombing of Serbia began in the year 1999, my organization took a position in opposition to the bombing, and we organized a number of cities to send assistance here. And in a show of solidarity to the people of Yugoslavia, we chose to meet in the year 2000 in the city of Kruševac. And of course, those of you who are acquainted with what happened then realized we had to go to Budapest. We had to take a bus for 12 hours to get there. But it was a demonstration of our solidarity with the people of Yugoslavia and Serbia in particular, and our opposition, to show our opposition so clearly, which we have continued to do, to the invasion of sovereign countries by NATO and imperialism. I also just want to speak just for a moment, if I may, on the experience of the right to intervene, which was initiated deliberately into the discussion of international law in order to enable imperialism and NATO to use the excuse that they had the moral obligation to go into a country to save the people. In 1999, the very year that Serbia and Yugoslavia were being bombed, there was a meeting in The Hague, or The Hague as others say it, of 10,000 peace activists. And the very day that the airplanes from the Netherlands were being used to bomb Yugoslavia, the foreign minister of Netherlands spoke at The Hague to a meeting of 10,000 peace activists. And those of us who opposed that bombing had to picket outside of The Hague to demonstrate our protests. And what governed that? What split the peace movement globally at that time was the idea that there had to be the right to intervene to save those people who are being slaughtered or assassinated, kidnapped, assaulted in Yugoslavia. And the global peace movement was absolutely divided. And this was a dramatic demonstration that you could convene 10,000 peace activists from around the world and not be allowed to say anything in the assembly about what was happening that day, that very day. And so a group of us had to go outside the building to demonstrate. That idea of the right to intervene, or has been called by one of the scholars humanitarian imperialism, is being used in order to try to win public support. And I had to remind ourselves of that danger. I just want to also speak very briefly about the U.S. and the sentiment of the people. Yes, U.S. imperialism is a master of what's taking place. But the American people are beginning to change. And I think those of us in the peace movement must recognize that. Let me give you several examples of this. We've heard about Syria. We know about the red line that President Obama set on the question of chemical use. And when the so-called investigation said that it was Syrian chemicals that were being used, he was all set to bomb Syria. And there was a protest by some members of the Congress and said, who were not opposed to the bombing, but said you should go to Congress. And then what happened? Then what happened? The American people protested so loudly that even the hawks, the right wing, said they could not endorse a bombing of Syria. And so the commander-in-chief of the empire could not impose his will on the American people. And they prevented the bombing of Syria. Further, the attempt, of course, that we know by U.S. imperialism to completely dominate the Middle East, especially now, first Syria and then to go to Iran for the oil. Because whoever dominates the Middle East and the oil dominates the engines of industry of China, Japan, India, and the other countries. Even if the United States claims it no longer needs the oil for itself. The American people greeted the suggestion that there be no good negotiations and stymied the attempts of the war hawks and Israel to provide a military answer to the so-called attempts by Iran for a nuclear program. Two major attempts. Last Thursday, a poll was taken in the United States, and the questions were twofold. One, should we send military aid to Ukraine? Two, should we intervene? And 61% of the American people said no. The American people have suffered from wars, are tired of wars, and plus the empire can no longer afford it. When the former Secretary of Defense was asked for his opinion on whether we should bomb Syria, he said, we cannot afford it. What does that mean? It means that the empire is having great difficulty financially in its resources. I tell you this about my country and my people because we realize we have those of us in the peace movement in the United States realize we have great responsibility, historic responsibility. I wish I could say that we have such a powerful peace movement and we are responsible for the attitudes. I think the American people are in advance of the peace movement. and that in our collective approach, yours and mine, to the American people, they are not the military-industrial complex. They are not the imperialists. They are like you and others. They are seeking for peace, and we can become allies in that common struggle. Thank you very much.